Hey, good morning. My name is Jared, and if you've been following along, we recently finished a series on love at Twin Lakes. Ephesians 3:18 describes God's love as wide, but it's also a love of depth, tremendous depth. I think this is well summarized in one of the most famous verses in the scripture, in John 3:16. Maybe you've memorized it. I would say maybe the most memorized scripture. And it says that for God so loved the world that he gave his only son, and whoever believes in him will not perish, but have everlasting life. If you're around in the 80s and 90s, you might remember a guy named Roland Stewart. This guy was crazy. He had this big rainbow wig, and they called him the Rainbow Man. And he would show up at sporting events, like big ones, with John 3:16 on his shirt. He'd have these big sheets that he'd hang over the railing, and he went absolutely viral at that time. Now, his story didn't actually turn out that well. But I recently met two friends who had an interesting story. One of them grew up with a real kind of cynical view of the guy. He's like, what is he doing? He's making Christians look bad. It's too weird. What's the wig? And maybe there's some truth to that. But he met his friend and he asked him, he said, hey, how did you come to know Jesus? And no joke, he said, I was watching a sports game and this crazy guy with this wig had John 3:16 hanging. So he went and he opened the Bible and he read that verse, and he was so moved by God's love, the greatness of God's love, that it started a relationship with Jesus. That was the beginning of his journey. So two things we can see. Number one is that God's love is wide. Recently I've met and talked to a number of people who feel like they, in some way, are afraid that God's love doesn't extend to them. They've been involved in something, they've done something, they've thought something that would hinder God's love for them. But this verse sort of shatters it out of the waters. If God so loved the world, all of the world, that includes you today. The second thing is it's a love of depth. It goes beyond words and intent, and it goes all the way to sacrifice. In a world where culturally love is really only given when it benefits us oftentimes, this is a radical concept. So maybe take some time and reflect on God's love, how great it is, and what it means for you today. Maybe take that verse, John 3:16, that you may have memorized, and look at it in a new light, personalize it, and take it in. God bless you guys, and we will see you next time.